Hello, welcome back, my quilty friends. I'm so excited you're here. My name is Laura. You found Lala D Stitches, and today's episode is a quilting bee. It has been, I didn't actually look, but I think my last one was in March. I think that's when my last video was, and I knew there was going to be a gap, but there was quite a gap. So I have lots to share with you, and yeah, let's jump right into it. I'm excited. My first segment is usually a featured designer or notion, and I don't have any new notion-y things to share today. So my featured designer is actually going to just be a piece of my haul, a book I found a couple months ago, and it's awesome. So we're just going to do a tiny little flip through. So the book is Fresh Start Quilts by Mary Etherington and Connie Tesene of Country Threads. It's down at the bottom. And as you can see, it's a joyful book. It is so pretty. And I'll just show you a couple of my favorite projects because they're all good. So I love this little wall quilt. I could see it in a lot of different colorways, and it's really fun with it being a two color. You can really customize it to whatever your room color palette is. So I see that in my future. I also see this one in my future, this Halloween block quilt. Less than 2 minutes in, and already my brain is playing games on me. It's fine. We're used to it at this point, right? Cute spring quilt. And again, you could do this in blues or greens or purples, or two color quilts are really flexible. I mean, all quilts are flexible, but I love this one. Mixture of a pinwheel and a kind of tiny bear paw. Super, super cute. And that one I actually love the colors on. I would probably keep it those colors. This one is gorgeous. This could be Christmas, 4th of July, Valentine's Day, a lot of holidays, their colors kind of feature red. So, or just because you love red. It doesn't have to be for a holiday. It's beautiful. Oh yes, I love this one. I'm flipping sides of the screen because I'm trying to protect the words, the pattern side of it. This one's beautiful. This is just scrumptious. I love that color palette, purples and greens. And then, of course, the cover quilt, which I think is even the cover picture, but super, super cute. Anyway, I thought it was a really fun book. There's a couple other projects in there, but these were my favorites. And yeah, this was new to me, so I thought I'd share it and feature it at the beginning. So there we go. It's cute. I see a lot of quilts coming out of that for me. Okay, I've worked on a lot of stuff. So, I think last time we met, I had shared, I'd finished my tiny log cabin, which is a big quilt, but the cabins themselves were small. And what else had I finished? I don't know. I'd finished a couple things, and I had started my Tula pink 100 blocks, and I think I'd just gotten the first 25 done when we met last. And I had plans to start Bird Pond, and you'll see that here real quick. Anyways, yeah. So I got a ton of sewing stuff. It was really nice. So what I found was that I had a lot of things prepped, and the last 2.5, 3 months have been really busy, extraordinarily busy, full of life events. But because I had things prepped, it became a really kind of therapeutic, peaceful time to be like, okay, I can come into my sewing room and I don't really have to think about anything. I can just pick up something that's ready to go, and I love that about my sewing room. But now I've kind of plowed through a couple projects, so I'm going to have to I guess I'm just gonna have to prep some more. Darn. Okay, so I'm realizing I also made a couple of project bags, but they are downstairs with projects in them, so you'll have to wait for my next floss tube to see those. But that's okay. Let's start. I'm going to scoot my chair over here so I can stand up, because not only did I start Bird Pond, I completed the top. So, I guess I should show you the pattern first. This is Bird Pond. It's a pattern by Tilda, and you can see it takes a lot of different fabrics. I do have in my binder, so if you're new with me and my quilting bees, I have kind of a master brain binder for my quilting. In it, I have, you know, these are just patterns I'm dreaming of or designing, and this is my kind of focus list. These are the things I'd like to accomplish this year. And then the tabs are all different projects that are either underway, waiting to be started, waiting to be, where's one that, oh, here's Tilda, here's Bird Pond. So we'll go there. Waiting to be quilted. So at the very back, once I have completed the top, I scoot all my guts for any project and I put it at the back. And you can see I've checked off all of the steps, and all I have left to do is sandwich and quilt and bind it. So, and I do a color palette page for each of my projects, which is very useful in the actual production of the project, but also very helpful when I'm coming back, because I've done a couple of quilts, especially smaller like baby quilts. I've done them several times, so I can kind of see what I've done before and reference back and either repeat or do different. Yeah, so that's kind of the brain there. You'll see it a couple times through the episode, but so Bird Pond quilt by Tilda, and I did this with most of the called for colors. So usually I try to mix it up, but this one was too sweet to shift around too much, so I just did it as called for, as much as I could anyways. Some of the Tilda fabrics, especially the older ones, can be difficult to get your hands on, so took a little bit of hunting, and but there it is. I hope you can see it. It's so sweet. It's so cute. Here, I'll fold it in half and then bring it a little closer so you can see. So the background is softly textured. It's called a linen texture, but it's 100% cotton. It's not a linen. And it makes a beautiful background. And I think the only exceptions to being the Tilda fabrics are this. No, this is a Tilda. This one's not. This one is not. I pulled those two from scraps because I couldn't find any more gray, brown Tilda prints. But I believe everything else in the quilt is, other than the background, is Tilda fabric. And it's so cute. I will say, if this is one you're interested in, I did find an error in the pattern. So, just for, where is it? I made a note of it. Oh, here we go. In the small duck blocks, so small ducks, the square for the beak is it's Liz cutting it at 1 3/4 inch. That is far too large. It needs to be 1 1/4 inches. So if you're gonna make this little beak needs to be 1 1/4 inches. It's just an error in the pattern. So kind of threw me for a loop for a few minutes, and then I figured out how to adjust it, and it worked great. I will say this was my first Tilda pattern to complete, and it is not a beginner pattern. The blocks themselves are not hard, but I mean, if you have someone you could talk to, I think you could figure it out, because the blocks themselves are not hard. It's half square triangles and squares and rectangles, right? But the way the pattern is written, she separates the words of the pattern, so the instructional part, from the images. And she's not consistent in how she refers to a piece. So sometimes she'll refer to it by its dimensions, and other times she'll refer to it by its color or its like its fabric or its placement in the block. And so it definitely took brain power to follow. And once you'd done a couple of blocks, it was easy peasy. But the first couple of blocks, you were going, okay, let me just make sure that I'm understanding this correctly, because everything is separate. It's just an interesting way to write patterns. It can be figured out. It was great once you had it, but it's not, its formatting is just a little different than I was accustomed to. So, and it's wrinkly. Forgive the wrinkles. It's been folded up for about a month now, so and I don't have backing for it yet. I want to buy some Tilda fabric for it because I think it deserves a Tilda back. And I did find that there's a store locally that sells Tildas, so that's exciting. Tilda backs can happen. Anyway, so I'll get this quilted before next spring, and then it can be out and on display, which is very exciting. Yeah, that was a big accomplishment. That's probably the biggest accomplishment I had, because I literally started it and did the whole top in between our last two videos. So yeah, very fun, very exciting to have done. That one's been in my queue for a couple of years. The next thing I did was I pieced this runner last summer. I think it was last summer. And if you've watched my other quilting bee videos, you'll have seen it. But it's Diamond Delight by Kay's Creations. It's an older pattern. Not too old though, 2005, 2008 for the copyright on it. It is, the pattern is written for Quilt As You Go, which if you're not familiar with that, it's a method of piecing things with your backing and batting already in place, so that when you are done piecing the top, all you have to do is bind it. It's literally pieced and quilted all at once, which is great. I chose to piece just the top and do a traditional sandwich, which takes a little bit of, reading in between the lines to read how to put the pattern together rather than just following exactly how it says. Does that make sense? Anyway, so that's how I did mine. And so I had the top done, and we got moved, and I had finished my bird pond top. I was like, well, I need something else to do. Not that I'm lacking things to do in my sewing room, but I decided to quilt it. So it's all quilted and bound, and here she is. Let's see if I hold her sideways, you can see it. And I love it. I'm so excited about it. I wound up going with an all over kind of a meandering feather, which has become my go-to quilting pattern. You'll be able to see it better on the back. It's so satisfying, and it feels so fancy, but it's really easy once you get the motion of it. And with this beautiful, I love this print, is what inspired the palette for everything else. And it's taller than I am. There we go. Yeah, anyways, I love it. I'm so excited. We have this big giant island in our kitchen, which I've never had before, and this is gonna go right down the middle with a bowl of fruit or flowers or something pretty on it. I'll figure it out, but that's where I'm thinking it'll go. Originally, I planned it would go on our dining room table when I made it last year, but we don't have a dining room table anymore because we have an island that has a spot for bar stools. It does not yet have bar stools. We did buy some right after we moved here and they wound up being too tall. And so we are in the midst of the adventures of figuring out what size bar stools will actually fit our island. We'll get there. Give us a couple of months. We'll have a place to eat dinner other than the couch. But the nice thing about that was I have been sewing on Costco plastic folding tables for years, but because I've been using them for years, they're rather warped. The plastic has just lost its integrity. And so my dining room table, which it's not a grand big table, it's about the size of a Costco table. It is now my sewing table and is so much more sturdy and so much more flat, which is great. It was getting to the point where I couldn't cut things out on my sewing tables anymore because they were so warped. I wouldn't get consistent straight lines, which does not an accurate project make. Anyways, she's all done and I'm thrilled with her and she has lots of strings. It's fine. This whole room has lots of strings. So that feels really good. So I have a fully finish and a top finish. It's been productive. It's been good. All right. And now let's go to projects in progress because, I mean, I always have stuff going. So the next one we'll talk about is my 100 blocks, Tilda, or Tula. It'll be good to have Tilda done so I can stop going Tilda, Tula, Tula, Tilda. It's a bit of it plays with your mind. And my brain just goes fast enough sometimes when I get excited that I don't get my chair back in the right spot here. I don't always say the correct word. Anyways, so this next one is coming from this book, Tula Pink's City Sampler 100 Modern Quilt Blocks. So I just call it Tula 100 Blocks because that's easier. And there are 100 blocks. And then at the back, she gives, let me get to that point. Well, it's a really cool book. So she gives different ways to choose color, how to kind of determine if your palette works well together, quilting tools, so it was like a brief little instructional moment, and then we get into the different layouts you can do with your blocks. I'm not doing this very well. Coordination is hard. So here's one of them. And the one I have chosen to do is this one. So the rainbow with the white background. I think it's gorgeous. And I definitely want to do, these blocks go so quickly. It's the hardest part, it's not even hard. The longest part is picking your fabric and cutting them out because this is not strip piecing. It's not mass production. Every block is unique. And so you cut them out one block at a time, one fabric at a time. Oh, this is the other one I really want to do. And in like a greeny blue palette. I think it's gorgeous. Makes my brain happy. So I'll be doing this again at some point. I have not even begun thinking about that because I'm in the middle of the rainbow. Actually, I'm 3/4 of the way through the rainbow. So I have completed, my goal was to get through block 75. So 3/4 of the way through, and I have done it. So all I have left are 25 blocks. which feels really good. I'm trying to think where the last one you saw was, because I'll just flip through them really quickly, but maybe it's not super critical. I know that was the beginning. That was the beginning. Sorry. All right, we may have ended somewhere around there. If we didn't, you'll see them all eventually when we get, oh wow, those ones are really similar. Isn't that interesting? Different but the same. Here, I'll show you just so you can see. So this is one wrinkly block and this one. So like they're similar vibes, but different blocks. It's very cool. Anyways, so I'll just go through these real quickly so you can see them because they're really fun. Each one is unique and they wind up featuring, there's fussy cutting involved, which is also really fun because it gives each block its own little flavor. So like this one, I've got a little peek of a whale. We've got the seahorse coming down between all three. So this had been one strip that I cut into three. And so you get this kind of broken but connected. Is that the way to put it? I don't know. Got some trash pandas. I actually love this block because it's so clear to see the fussy cutting and it's just so clean with the solids. I haven't done a lot with solids. I have more solids in my collection than I have had in the past. One's pretty. But I've never done like a solid quilt because anytime I start pulling a solid palette, I'm like, ooh, that's really satisfying. But wouldn't it be cool if it had more something? And I don't remember if this one goes that way. Probably. It feels like that's the way it would go. I'll have to see in the book. There's that one. My blues have been the most difficult. When I was collecting my Tulas, apparently I did not collect sufficient blues. So some of my blue blocks are very similar because I'm working with repeated fabrics. It's fine. Oh, I love this one with the elephants. Elefantes, as Samwise would say. Oh, now I want to watch that. Who wants to have a Lord of the Rings marathon with me? I haven't done it in a couple months. I'm jonesing. Some of these yellow ones are real bright. It's like, wow. But you can see they're simple blocks. I mean, they just fly together. It's once they're cut out, you sit down and it's just a couple of sessions in the sewing room. And you've got, this one's really cool. You lose the image of it. This fabric actually has an adorable little fat frog. And you don't see any of that because the pieces are so small. But so that's not a Tula fabric, but you know, you've got to fill in when you can't find the right color, like that one. What was I saying? I don't know. This one I intentionally let swirl. So a lot of the blocks, I've been very careful as much as possible to get them all facing the right direction, since this is a directional quilt in a lot of ways. So I've made the blocks consistently directional, but this one's jellyfish and they kind of swirl on the fabric. So I just cut it out as it was the most efficient to cut it out and let it be what it was. And it kind of has a cool effect. I like it. This one was really hard to get everybody facing the right direction. It took brain and he lost his face, but you know, maybe he's just peeking into the trees or something. Ah, Butterfingers. This one, that one's cool. It's very satisfying. Glub glub. Do you like my commentary with each block? There's actually a slot in the book to name each of your blocks. He's so pretty. And I did for the first 25 and I have not continued it because I just get into production mode. And, ooh, this one's like wild and crazy, but also really pretty. Anyway, so I haven't been naming them, but they all have their own little story, don't they? Little squirrels. Flowers. Ooh. Cute. Giraffe in a box. It looks like one of those children's like play cubes. The alphabet cubes. They have little pictures on them. I'm going to be associating a lot of things with children's toys now because I get to see my adorable, sassy little niece every week. And so I'm experiencing children vicariously through her. Little guy. I couldn't quite get that one to piece in the center. It would have taken cutting another piece out, really. And I decided it wasn't worth it. Boring, but nice. Ooh, I love this one. This is like foxes jumping over the mountains to me. Whee! Ooh, that one's really pretty too. Strings and all. Oh my goodness. There we go. They look so funny with the seam allowance. It looks like they're off center, but but it's a good thing that's there. It means I pieced accurately. If they weren't off center, we'd have a problem. But these ones will really look cool when. Also, does that turtle not look like the turtle in Kung Fu Panda? Yes, I think so. I love how subtle the animals are in this print. The parrots or toucans or whatever. Fancy parakeet or something. A little nod to Alice. That is, she did a whole line. Tula did a whole line of Alice in Wonderland. And I didn't love all of them, the faces. I love the homage to her sister, but they were kind of creepy. So I wrote my favorite, but the companion pieces were darling. So, and it's fun to have that little nod to a fandom in the block, in the quilt. I feel like these all need to be rollered. And I think this is where we ended last time, was with the sweet bunnies and the moons. Anyways, so that is the next 20 or next 50. I don't know. We have 75. Isn't that pretty? So fun. So I have chosen the fabrics for the next 25. I have not cut them out yet. So that is whenever I get the urge to cut things out. Because that's definitely, I feel like each step of quilting has its own satisfaction, right? Try to keep the chaos to a minimum here. Like picking out the fabric and the excitement of kind of planning out a project is an activity and a satisfaction of its own. And then you cut them out and they're, I don't know, taking it from these big pieces into the smaller pieces that will ultimately become something is its own activity. And then the piecing and then the assembling of all the blocks and then the quilting, like all these different stages have their own joys with them. And so sometime when I'm wanting to cut, they're all stacked and labeled and ready to go. And then it'll just fly together. I'm going to have to get some white background. Because I don't have a piece, if I want it to be consistent, which would be nice with this one. I don't have a piece large enough. So when we get there, I'll have to go shopping. Darn. Darny darn darn. I just hate going to the quilt shop. What torture. Sweet, blissful torture. Okay. So the next one I worked on, because I didn't really want to cut out the next 25 blocks. I was done with Bird Pond. I had quilted my runner. I had Maud's strawberries all cut out. So this is when I'd started last year and had hoped to kind of work on through the summer, but I fell in love with Fab Farm and completely abandoned all my other plans through the summer and just worked on my cute little farm animals, which was delightful. And I always try to keep my hobbies fun. Like I set these schedules, I set these goals, and I kind of organize, but I also, within that organization, give myself a lot of space to just work on what feels good at the time, because that's the point. That's how you kind of keep your creative juices alive, right? Like you have to do what is inspiring in the moment, and that shifts from day to day, week to week, month to month, Anyway, so I was very enthusiastic about this at the start of the summer, and I got it all cut out, which is a ton. This project looks so simple. There's 25 strawberries. It should just right? No, it doesn't. Every step up until where I am now is labor intensive. And it's not hard, even with the curves, but there's so many steps. It's a busy project. So here is my to-do list for this project. I wrote out each of the 25 strawberries because I'm at that point now. I've done all the cutout, all of the prep work, and now I'm ready to assemble my strawberries. And here's my palette, everything but the background fabrics. And everything. It's a general palette. I think I got most of the colors I used, but it's very scrappy. So there may be more colors than this. What's on this side? Oh, this was just notes for myself. It's always good to have a spot where you can scribble out what you need to do. I find it helpful to read the pattern and then be like, okay, here's how I'm understanding this. Do they match, right? Because it's easy to get excited and kind of skip a step, and that can be problematic, especially with a pattern that looks like this. I'll just do it a little quick drive by there. So I have one block. I did one strawberry for you. Where's my board? It's underneath my binder. Okay, so I did one strawberry, all done. And I have on my table the other 24 strawberries in fractured form because they're not pieced yet. But they're a high priority because there's no way I'm putting all those pieces in a box. As you can see, there's a lot going on here. So I did all the cutout, and when I picked this up, I was like, oh, it's just ready to sew together. But you sew hundreds of curves, and then you have to trim them all down. And these pieces, you sew to curve, and then you cut into that piece, which was very nerve-wracking, and then sew another curve. I guess you sew a curve, and then you sew another curve into it, and then you trim it all down. Anyways, there's a lot of work. This is not a simple quilt. Definitely more intermediate to advanced, I'd say. But really fun and really satisfying. You can see all of my backgrounds are scrappy, and I tried to keep them within the color palette of the quilt, so they'll have reds, pinks, or greens in the backgrounds, or just be neutral. And it's going to be really fun. Every block is going to be so different. This one wound up being really red, but you can see I've got some kind of purpley colors in there, and some of them go a bit, pinker. Some of them go really deep or bright red. It's going to be fun. And once the 25 blocks are done, it really will go together quickly. I think I'm through the thick of it. I think. If you are interested in this pattern, you do need to also get the QCR mini ruler. So this is from So Kind of Wonderful. So Kind of Wonderful. And there's also a bigger So there's a normal, like standard sized curve ruler. Here, I'll put a board behind it so you can see it better. There you go. So it has this cut so you can cut your curves. It's super slick. And I've done I think it's called Mod Rings or something like that, which uses the bigger curve and does a double wedding ring. That one was fun. I've done that one twice and may do it a third time because it's very satisfying. And each quilt looks different. I've done it in kind of summery colors, and then I did one in pinks and grays for my mother-in-law who loves pink. Anyway, so if you're going to do the strawberries and already have the ruler, make sure it's the mini because the big one will not work. The curve is not the right curve. So, and you use all these different lines for different portions of trimming and cutting and chaos. Happy quilting chaos, but chaos nonetheless. I'm definitely grateful to be at the let's sew all these pieces together. Oh, another thing. You'll notice that these do not match up with the corners. They're not supposed to. You know, you see on the interwebs a lot of different people's opinions. And I am a firm believer in quilt in a way that makes you happy. But I was taught that accuracy is important, that this is math and it is precision, and that there is pride to be taken in precision. So while I quilt in a way that makes me happy, there's still this little grandma voice in my head that's like, be accurate, be precise. And it is very satisfying. So when I sewed this first seam in, I was like, okay, I pinned it in the center and then, sewed it. But these were not, there was no way that these were going to match. And I had to go back to pictures and diagrams and confirm that I hadn't completely goobered it up somewhere. And here, I'll just cover this. How can I do this and protect the copyright? There we go. That's probably good enough. But you can see it's not intended. So if you too care about precision, just know I'm doing my best. And that it's not supposed to. And once you know that it is intentionally offset, it's all good. So, anyways, I'm excited for this. It's going to be gorgeous. And it's definitely going to, I'm going to keep this one out until the top is done at this point, because we're in the home stretch. We're in the last quarter. Okay, so I think that's everything I actively worked on as far as whips go, but I do have a little bit of haul because it's been 3 months. and I've got another project that I have just started this morning, and then plans for projects that will start as the summer goes on. So let's do that. The first one comes from a blog. So I actually found it through Pinterest, and she very kindly has written out a free tutorial for this quilt. It's a American flag quilt, and we're coming up on Memorial Day and 4th of July for the United States, and I have very little patriotic decor, if you will, that is not 15 years old at this point. So I thought maybe a little fresh twist would be good, just kind of refresh what I have. And then my friend just quilted hers, or she just pulled her top out to quilt it in the next couple of weeks. And I was like, oh, I want to make one. So I went digging in my stash, and I do not have a page created for this yet, because this literally has happened in the last couple of days. So this is my stack of red, white, and blues. And all of the prints for the white have red, white, or blue in them. And it's very cute. I'm very happy. And where do I put this beautiful stack? I don't know. Oh no, runaway strawberry piece. It'll wind up where it goes. It's fine. Okay, so the blog is donnaslavendernest.blogspot.com, and now that I know how to edit my videos, I will put that at the bottom, as well as a picture of what her finish looked like, because it's very cute and fresh. I'm not afraid to show you my diagram because she does a free tutorial. So I've written out my dimensions, you know, red, white, and how many sashing strips I need. And this will get me, this is my pattern now from her blog. You make 24 flag blocks, and I have made one so you can see what my palette will start to look like. And there are some brighter ones and some darker ones. And for instance, one of my reds, a couple of my reds are pretty, you know, primitive almost compared to this one I made up. You know, a very different vibe, but like still patriotic. And I've done that intentionally because, and you can see all together, they really, it's fun. It's just fun movement, and it will all read, they'll all play nice in the end, but it's brain. My quilting journey has been going most of my life. And when I was a kid, you know, you do kind of, well, when I was a kid, I was like neon colors. I was like, I want it as bright as possible. And then as I kind of went into my teenage years, I was really into reproductions, traditional, primitive, you know, very historical feeling. And then in my 20s, I kind of merged into this more modern, bright. And now I'm just like this collage of all of them. So I have my older projects that are completed are a lot more primitive and traditional, and my newer ones are a lot brighter. And so I'm really working with my current interests on one, being true to myself and not feeling like I have to fit into any one flavor of quilting, because it's really easy to be like, oh, I really love that, I should have all my quilts look like that so that they all looked good together. But I don't think that's necessary. I think especially where I'm a super scrappy quilter, as long as I can successfully merge them all together. So like in my reds, you know, I've got the dusties, not dusties, but I mean, almost. I've got those darker, and then I go into super bright and modern, and, but as long as you can make it cohesive, this becomes a connection between the really bright that I did in my 20s and the more traditional that I did in my teens and late teens, and it becomes a truer representation of me now. So I don't know. I'm probably on a little bit of a soapbox here, but it's one thing that I love about quilting is that it really becomes a form of self-expression, and it changes as we change, because we're never the same one year to the next, right? Life influences us and we grow, hopefully, and our interests change. And for me personally, I'm always trying to be, especially in the last, 5 or 6 years, I've really sought for authenticity and being true to myself, especially in a world where we are influenced in every aspect. And some of those are really great, and some of them can, distract us from ourselves. And so anyways, soapbox over, but I've intentionally made my palette for this a merging of both bright and traditional so that all of my decorations will work well with each other. So there you go. So I have one done. I have 23 more to go. And this literally took I mean, maybe 15 minutes. It's so quick. So this will fly together, and my ambitious goal is to have the quilt literally done and quilted by July 4th. Preferably July 1st. So that I could just have all of my decorations out for the, summer. And I do have a piece of backing that I think will work for it. So this was actually slotted for something else that I'm not sure I'll ever finish, because I started it 12 years ago and I'm just disenchanted with the project. But I think this is really pretty, and it would make it so that I can do this entire quilt from stash, except for batting. I need to go buy some batting, but I'll do that once I have the top done. So that one's in the progress. Oh, well, how appropriate. 4th of July fireworks for my project. Oh my goodness. I forgot that it does that, and it flusters me every time. It's fine. It's fine. Okay. So at least for June, I've got strawberries, and because really we've got a week and a half of May left, and then I am camping for 5 of those days. So June is 4th of July flags and my strawberries. Those will be my focus projects. So hopefully when I come back, I'll have 2 tops to show you. That would be exciting. And then I would also have a goal of cutting out my next 25 Tula. See, I told you it's a little mind game there. Tula blocks, so that those are ready to be done. Anyways, we'll see how it goes. We'll see how focused I am. We'll see how much I play out in the sun instead of sewing. We'll find out. Okay, so that's all of my whips. Let's talk a little bit. It'll be a combo of haul and kind of projects that are brewing in my brain for leading into late summer and autumn. Like, these might be the things I work on in August kind of idea. So, first of all, this cute little pattern. Oh my goodness. And the picture is totally washed out and doesn't do it justice. They had a sample of, I think they had 12 of these. It's a monthly thing. And they were all lined up along the ceiling line in this shop from Quilts, etc., which is down south of Salt Lake. My sister and I went and explored, and that is one freaking fantastic store. So if you're ever in Salt Lake, or if you live in the general area, I highly recommend that store. You probably already know about it. I'm just new, so I'm a ferner. So it's all new to me. And anyways, that shop was fabulous. They have one section on one side of the one side of the road, and it's much bigger than it looks from the outside. And then you cross the street and they have a whole nother store, but they're like one store, just 2 buildings. And I mean, they've got boutiques, they've got the Hoffman Japanese gorgeous fabrics, they've got art gallery, Moda. The other side had wool, hand-dyed wool and wool felt, and beautiful samples and some novelty prints. I mean, I could have gotten into big trouble. It was a good thing I had a budget. Anyway, so this was one of my little treats from there, and it's so cute. And those ladybugs sold it for me. It was so funny. I don't know. It'll just be a cute little wall quilt, but not right now. Okay, we'll just show a couple of fabrics real quick, and then we'll jump into those projects I was alluding to. So I found this, I feel like I need to base a quilt off of this. I only bought a fat quarter, or maybe it was a half yard. I got a half yard. And it is so beautiful. Like, the more I look at it, the more I love it. And yeah, this might become the inspirational piece. I might need to go back and get like a yard because it's so pretty. And I have been dreaming of making a purple quilt for 20 years. Purple's one of my favorite colors. And this one's so pretty. I believe these are both art galleries, I want to say. They have that feel. Yes. Yes. Anyways, beautiful. Anyway, it might be time in the next year to make a purple quilt. And then remember I mentioned there's a place that sells Tildas. Look at these sweet little sleeping field mice. Oh my goodness. Little squirrels. Absolutely precious. I have no idea what I'll do with them, but they had to come home. They were too cute. Okay, so then this next stack. So I showed you last time we met, I was kind of dreaming of doing this, which is a cutout from a magazine. Actually, I think I can get the information down here. Yes. It's old. American Patchwork and Quilting, October 2015 is where, oh, that's not going to focus. Anyways, that's what it says down here. And I just cut it out of the magazine one of the times when I was doing a purge or a downsize, and I kept the projects I liked and tossed the rest of the magazine. And this one's just really cool. This is my palette for it that I've been building a palette page for. You can see I am loving the teals and greens, and I am lacking in the teals and greens so far. So I have collected a few more, which will help. I also found that I had really pulled heavily on the kind of citrus, brighter citrus colors. And the more I have looked at this, the more I want to go into kind of the richer side of those instead of the bright. So I think some of these bright ones will go away and be replaced with some, or maybe they'll just all work together. We'll find out. But it's still a work in progress. I'm not ready to start cutting on this because I'm still in the collecting phase. And it takes 4 2/3 yards background, which I have not settled on yet. So, and this one I am going to, you know, as my normal is, do scrappy. So I want the background to be printed, but calm, if that makes sense. So maybe like a line work kind of print or something more tonal with a little bit of movement, but not so much. I really want these glorious stars to be the showcase. So, like they are here. But I don't want a solid. So, you know, it's a work in progress, but it's starting to grow into something satisfying. So that's fun. It's coming along. Okay. Yes, another thing I'm working on, I don't have the fabric right beside me, but the Elizabeth Hartman, I've been playing arts and crafts with my pattern. But it's called North Stars. And because, so when in the weeks building up to the release of the Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery Arctic Sal, which started a couple weeks ago, people were posting their finishes of this quilt. And I've had this quilt pattern in my stash since it was released like 7 years ago. It's time. So I'm starting to build a palette, but it's a little lackluster and I have some obvious holes. So it's in progress. My hope is, so the stitch along is a 12-month one. And if I could get my palette in place and all of my materials gathered by the time we've made it through the first quarter, so in the next couple months, I would love to do a block a month for the last 9 months of the stitch along and then kind of complete both projects about the same time. I don't know. maybe that's ridiculous, but that's kind of how my brain is processing that. And so that's something I'm working on. You can tell my brain is all over the place. This is why I need organization tactics, because because I really enjoy, you know, while I'm working on something, literally while I'm sewing on something, I will be thinking about another project and being like, oh, this would be so cool if I was like this, and I'm, you know, stitching away. It's fine. So this next one, right after we moved, my sister and I we got together for the first time. So, you know, a few weeks ago, because it's not been that long. It's been a month and a half. It's been longer than I thought. Because my husband started April 13th. And so it's been just over a month. It's the 18th today, right? Yeah, it's the 18th of May today. So it's been just over a month. So within the first week of moving, I needed a break from the moving responsibilities. So my sister and I went out and played, and we went to Shepherd's Bush, and we also hit a quilt shop. And it was interesting because I went in with a list. I knew we were going to a quilt shop, and I was like, okay, I am looking for, you know, colors for North Star. In fact, I was looking for a background that day. Didn't find anything. And I'm looking for colors for my stars. And, you know, I had projects in mind, but the store brought a new project into my world. Let's just put it that way. Because I was finding everything not on my list, and I was super happy to do it. I was just so inspired by these fabrics. So, I just started picking up fat quarters, and by the time we'd been there about half an hour, I had this spicy palette, autumn palette, and I was like, oh my gosh, I think this is a quilt. I think I am unintentionally grabbing things that all go together, and it's a quilt. And look how gorgeous. Okay, this one came from my stash. That's why it doesn't have a band on it. Look how gorgeous they are. Oh my gosh, these plums and deep teals, a little bit of olive and gold and rust. Spicy yum. I love it. And then I also found a couple of low volumes that also I just love with it. So I got this stack home. I was like, okay, now I have all these fat quarters. I've got to find a project. And I went digging through and I found this. So Cabin Peaks, which I frankly, when I bought this, planned on doing either ombre or like pictured. I didn't really picture completely changing the aesthetic of it, but I'm gonna. It's gonna be great. So I found this piece of stringy background fabric that is lovely. It's just, what color is that? It's kind of a rust color almost, a light rust, tan and orange. I think it's actually two colors. Anyways, covered in strings. I've had it in my stash for a long, long time. But the creaminess appealed to me. And it's not quite enough for the background and the lap size. The twin, or they call it a twin. Was I going to do a twin or yeah, I was going to do the twin because my husband's tall. So if I do a throw size for the couch, he inevitably says, man, this quilt is nice, but it'd be better if it was longer. So I usually do twins for throws. So yes, I do not have enough background fabric, but I had the thought, I was like, okay, so if most of it was this, and then every once in a while there was a block with a different but kind of blending in background, that is a way that I could kind of fill in the required background fabric from stash. So that's the idea going on here. I think it'll be cute. And of course, let's see if I can do this. Let's see if I can coordinate my body. Oh yeah. So they look scrumptious with this creamy background. So here's the other conundrum. I should have enough fabric. This is a lot of fabric sitting right here. But, of course, this pattern calls for 1/3 of a yard for each of the colors. And I went in and I drew out a fat quarter. Excuse me, because some patterns, you know how some patterns are, they are either just enough where you have to be so precise with your cutting that there is no wiggle room, or there is so much wiggle room that you wind up with heaps of extra fabric that was not necessary at the end. Elizabeth Hartman is very often that way. I always wind up having tons of extra fabric. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, it's better too much than too little, right? I'd rather have them overshoot than do just enough. Anyways, it turns out after I, diagrammed my cutting layout from a fat quarter, that you do need 1/3 of a yard. I was hoping that she would be overshooting it, like giving requirements generously so that I could actually make a fat quarter work, but you can't quite do it. So it's a bit of a woe is me moment, because what I need to do is go back to the shop and hopefully find all of these fabrics again. And I don't know, not all shops will cut 1/8 of a yard for you. If I could do that, that would be perfect, because that's all I need is 1/8 of a yard, like a straight 1/8. Worst case scenario, I have to buy a second fat quarter of each one, which will be a problem for my scrap from home. But I could just find another gold that coordinates, and that would be another option too, would be to dig through my stash and see. No, I can't though, because you cut one. Anyways, brain. You can see this one's a work in progress too. I need more fabric, or I need to find a way to add a couple more colors that would coordinate, because the problem is they do a line of blocks that are all the same, and I kind of want to keep with that. Normally what I would do is I'd be like, oh, I don't have enough of this gold, so I'll do, I'll throw a or rust. This is not gold. I don't have enough of this rust. I'll find another rust and then just insert a rusty block to make up for the difference. That way I don't have to buy more fabric. But this one's a little bit more organized, and I'm inclined to, save up $50 and go buy more matching prints, so that I have enough of each one. Anyways, but here's the thing. Last year I did an autumn leaves quilt, and magically it really looks nice with these fabrics. So if I could make this quilt top in August and have it quilted by September and pull out my autumn leaves and this one, they would look so divine next to each other. So that's kind of this one. And the last thing, I promise, the very last thing I'm working on, this is just goodies, is going to be a little awkward to show you, but my sister gifted me this pattern for my birthday 2 years ago. I don't think it was last year. No, it couldn't have been last year, because I remember I had it through the summer. I thought, oh, I should work on this, but maybe it was even Christmas. Doesn't matter. Anyways, she gifted me this pattern, and because I love lighthouses, it's perfect. It's gorgeous. It's tiny. It finishes, so you can make it bigger, but I want to put this on the wall. I have this spot at the top of my stairs that I think would be perfect. So if you do the smaller version, it finishes 20 by 23 inches. Madness. I'm so excited. And so I see it in batiks because they just blend so gorgeously. and I have started digging into my stash. And I think I've pretty much got everything figured out except for the borders and the sky. The sky, I'm lacking in like soft blues, soft blendy blues. And then I'm gonna have to find something awesome for the border. So I'm still kind of digging through, but I got to that point yesterday, and I had been in here a long time, and my brain was just like shorting out. So it's gonna sit over there for a little bit and kind of marinate, and then I'll dig through my boxes one more time and see if I don't see something that I hadn't noticed before, and if I don't, then I'll have to find a store that sells batiks. So yeah, very fun. Yeah, I'm really excited about everything that's going on right now in my sewing room, which is lovely. Let me just check my notes, make sure I didn't miss anything. Spicy autumn. Yeah, I think I've done it all. So, excuse the text coming in. I'm sorry, my computer, everything else is silenced, but my computer is not. So, you get a little ding, but that's okay. We're wrapping up anyways. I thank you so much for watching and kind of chattering with me. Oh my gosh, it's my sister. She's like, when are we getting together next? Soon. Anyways, thanks so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed. I hope you found something exciting. Maybe you'll be stitching a patriotic quilt too, or jumping into some crazy strawberries, or I don't know, spicy autumn. Because summer's just starting. Why wouldn't I jump a season ahead and work on an autumn quilt? I don't know. Who is this? I'm always a seasonal stitcher. Oh, and this year I just find myself thinking 3 months in advance. So I guess it's not a bad thing. I hope you have a marvelous weekend or week, depending on when you get around to watching this. And I hope you get some quilting done, or maybe some stitching. You know, lots of different things can be done while watching a floss tube or a quilting bee. Anyways, I'm rambling. I'll let you go. Happy stitching, my friends. Thanks so much, and I will see you soon, hopefully next month. Toodaloo.